Welcome to the Wickedly Smart Women podcast, featuring stellar conversations with emerging and established wickedly smart women. Thanks for joining us today as we celebrate women who are committed, care deeply, and have the courage to take action and create conscious change all around the world. Now here's your wickedly smart host, Anjel B. Hartwell.
Welcome to another episode of the Wickedly Smart Women podcast, where we celebrate wickedly smart women and provide our listeners with a wealth of wisdom, along with immediately actionable steps to be smarter, spunkier, and more successful in their impact and their leadership. This is your host, Anjel B. Hartwell, and today we welcome our special guest, Margo Masri. With a wealth of diverse experience in advanced accounting techniques and bookkeeping, Margo brings passion and energy to the company she started back in 2003, Accounting and CFO Solutions. She was inspired to start the business after witnessing many of her clients struggling to navigate the complex maze of financial jargon required to successfully run and, more importantly, grow their businesses. More than a decade later, and after providing bespoke financial solutions to thousands of happy clients, Accounting and CFO Solutions has grown tremendously, recently being ranked among the top 18 bookkeepers in New York for a second straight year. Welcome to the show, Margo.
Thank you.
So glad you're here.
Me too.
All right. Well, I am very curious about all of this because it's interesting. My mom was a bookkeeper. My mom taught me how to bookkeep when I was 7 years old. I am curious about where you got inspired to become a bookkeeper and then where you got inspired to start your own business serving other people as well.
Sure. So around when I was 12, it started to hit me more about the everyday challenges that my family was going through. I also saw tremendously around me how people were just always on some type of hardship. It just seemed to be a pattern. And I just didn't like that feeling. And I said to myself, there has to be a better way, and there has to be more to a dollar than really what it seems. And it didn't have to be that hard. And my inspiration to start my own business was that I wanted to be around for my children. I saw that from my mom, she would come home from the day, she would work so hard. And, at the end of the day, we just want to rest and just lay down, but then you have to take care of your family. And it was just that constant strain. So when I was having my son, from a lot of surroundings and loved ones, the opportunity came to really work for myself as a stay-at-home mom, and things really grew. So the combination of both, it grew to today, which became, number 3 in New York of, the top bookkeeping, which I've never imagined ever.
So when you were 12, what was going on when you were 12? Like, did your parents have their own business, or like what happened when you were 12 that made you start thinking about dollars?
My parents definitely did not have their own business. They definitely both worked for somebody. At school, I felt like this constant tagging of not being in the cool group or not being able to do things because I couldn't afford what the cool girls did or the cool group did. And I just didn't like that feeling. And it was always like a constant thing between school and then at home, my parents just always in this stress between each other about money. So everything around me was always money, 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 money. And it just felt like, that was the strain on life. And if you took the hardship out of that, you can really start to live at a higher level. And that's really what I wanted to create.
So, I spent time bookkeeping when I was a kid, right? My mom had a yarn shop. And when I first stepped into a working situation beyond waitressing, I also did bookkeeping because I had the skill. Never in a million years would I equate bookkeeping with reducing stress around money. So help me make that bridge, because maybe it's because for me, that wasn't really my destiny and it really wasn't what I was best suited to do. It just happened to be a skill that I was trained in. So I would love to hear a little bit about how you have managed to unpack the magic that allows bookkeeping to take away stress.
So stress in terms of bookkeeping, it really underlies that people just have no idea what goes on. And it was always the idea of not knowing. It would come into this paralyzation of, oh my God, and all the variations of that. So through simple processes of like organizing things, of like having bank statements at your fingertips, credit card statements at your fingertips, actually opening your bank statement, stuff like that, it really starts to reduce the stress. And a lot of people were coming to me for these things. And I just seem to always attract things like that. And the conversations of money and that alignment with people, it just kept coming into my energy. And when I saw that my processes and systems that people just kept, coming to me for, things just kept evolving, really on its own.
Beautiful. So when you started your own business, did you have to leave behind a job? And if so, what was the process for you in making that decision to make that leap?
So I was at an accounting firm and I was pregnant with my son. And I chose that firm. It was in between two jobs. And I chose that firm because it was closer to Bloomingdale's. And it was one of the other ones that it wasn't like the top 5. I think it was like part of the top 10 accounting firms. And I saw my older sister, her struggle. She's also an accountant. And I saw what it did to her being in that next tier. And, she was like one of the people who, I saw as a model in my life. And also just starting in my career, I decided to go where it was closer to Bloomingdale's. And they were both like comparable offers and things. I was pregnant with my son. And I also saw the energy from the firm. I saw everybody really attacking things that had nothing to do with my credentials and seeing that it wasn't really my future that was really going to develop. So there was this job that just came up, and it happened to be for a designer, a famous designer, Joseph Abboud. And the opportunity came to me to work for him. And I applied. At first, I wasn't going to apply. And it really just started to spiral because he said yes. And, through that, the concept of working at home, it just really evolved. At that time, I was married. Now I'm recently divorced. So my ex, did inspire me at that time, to do it so that I can be at home. And he did give me that initial push. So all of those things really helped. I look back and I say, thank God I did it and that I followed it and I didn't fight the current. Because when you fight the current, you're just resisting really what really your heart is. And I say today, and I cry thinking about this because I'm so thankful that I followed it.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, congratulations on your divorce.
Thank you.
I often like to just say that to people when they're in that process because, sometimes it's the best possible thing that can happen for you is to let go of other things that aren't working. And so you're bringing 2 stories of letting go of things that weren't working, letting go of working for a company that was not the right fit for you. And then letting go of the husband that's no longer the right fit for you. So congratulations. You're a model of letting go today, Margo. All right. Well, we got a few minutes before the break. So what I want to talk to you about now is when you stepped into having your own business, what would you say was the biggest challenge for you when you did that? And what would you say your biggest challenge is today?
Amazing question. I love this one. Oh, I could get taken away. So my biggest challenge, I would say, is being a woman in a man's world. And I'm really comfortable saying that. And I think it took me many years to even, to shout that out because I'm looked at as a woman. I'm looked at as, a person who doesn't know. And also at a young age, it was also with these constant beliefs and tags that I didn't know. And I have a CPA background, but I don't have my CPA. So it was a combination of, not going to that next level of school and the concept of a woman, that it was like that constant charge that I had to feel like I had to stand up to all the time before people would actually see me for my credentials and my skills. So it's almost like it was exhausting before it would take off. Now my hardship is it's really narrowing it down to what I want to focus to, because like the world is open. As you pointed out, letting go of things that didn't serve, because I've done that work, each day it happens easier and easier for me. And really just prioritizing what I want to do is really, my hardship. I don't find anymore that hardship of the man thing lets me get that part like it did used to. It's more so now, what is the best way that I can serve women, my following, and of course men as well, actually, in the best way possible, so that they can transform their life and not see money as hard, see accounting as fun, and, leave this concept with, get sexy and get hot with your numbers, because once you do, life changes and it just gets easier.
Sexy and hot with your numbers, girl. I love it. That's awesome. All right. Well, there's a couple things that you said there that I just really want to underscore for our listeners. If you're in that phase where you're thinking about leaving behind your career and starting your own gig, particularly if you're in an industry like Margo is, where it's predominantly male. So I spent years in the real estate industry, and I had that same experience where, you aren't taken as seriously, or you're not respected for your intelligence or whatever because you have boobs. I think all of us have been there. And, when you step into your own business, you're still going to navigate those things, and you're going to be in a position initially where you are actually going for the business, right? Going for the business and having to navigate the challenges of not only, wanting to make the connection to have the business happen, but also those any other pieces of challenges that come along, whether you have the right letters after your name, or whether you have boobs, or, whatever, whether you're a person of color, whatever those additional challenges are on top of the challenge of just making the connection to have business happen. And so you've been doing this since 2003. So you're now almost 20 years in. And what I want people to hear is that you're now at a place where you're actually starting to say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And you're in that place where now you're in refinement. And that is such a blessed place to be. But it's also can be challenging to be overwhelmed with all of the opportunities and have to say, have to get clear in your own no, right? Have to use your no muscle. So yeah, I love that, Margo. And I'm really excited that you kind of brought that transit. Like that's the growth phase of being in your own business.
It's freeing.
Yeah.
It's freeing.
Yeah.
And no is a full sentence.
Yes, it is a full sentence.
No is a full sentence.
I love that.
I say that because, people feel like that they have to give reasons of why and justify and all of those different things. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. What you'd have to do is serve yourself first, because if you have oxygen, the rest of the world will have oxygen of who needs you and who is your surrounding. And it all starts with that inner power, of that inner alignment of that power. And the first time you say no, it's like it really is hard. You feel guilt, shame, and all of those different things. And like you said, the struggle doesn't end. It just gets easier. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, currently right now, I have this high profile client, and just a few days ago, I had to fire him because the disrespect level to me and my credentials, it started to get over into where there wasn't reasonableness of where we were going to get to a place. Mm-hmm. And of course, you could imagine him as a male and his high profile, that it didn't get received too well, and all of these different things back. And I say, thank God, it's information.
Yeah.
And, eventually it just gets easier in the way of that you realize also what's yours and what's theirs.
Yeah.
And the power comes into your skills, your alignment, and what you want to share. And like you perfectly pointed out, it's the refinement of what you're going to do. And that's exactly what is that I'm refined with what I do, that it's really clear cut. So once it comes to that, it just doesn't work. You also want to have a business every day that you love and that you wake up to. There's nothing worse, and I've been there, where you're in this like cryptic situation and there's pain and like you get like all of these different things. And then who loses? Not only do you lose, it's your family.
Yeah, everybody.
And the money doesn't come. The money doesn't come.
And any money that does come is literally blood money. So
exactly. It ends up, you lose it in a different way. Correct. And if you pay attention to that, you'll realize like if there's a bill or something like that came up, it's kind of like it just, and it's hard to believe in like that's what was meant to be. But you get into that flow that you realize that, oh, wow, this is an easier way to work and it's effortless.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about getting sexy and hot with our numbers. Right now, though, Wickedly Smart Women, we need your help. If you are enjoying this show and want us to stay on the air, please consider making a donation and get sexy and hot by sending us some numbers at www.wickedlysmartwomen.com. There's a little magic button right there on the page where you can donate to support the mission. We'd also love to ask you to share with your lovely lady friends that you think might benefit from our content. And we want to say a thank you to all of our listeners who are downloading, rating, and reviewing. We're now in 69 countries. We're welcoming thousands of downloads from all over the world. And I want to shout out this week to our listeners in New York, especially those listeners who made Margo one of the top 18 bookkeepers in New York for second straight year. So we'll be right back with Margo Masri.
The Wickedly Smart Women podcast is brought to you by the Wealthy Life Mentor. Women, are you on the edge knowing that life is calling you to make a change? Are you ready to be part of the evolution of what it means to be a wickedly smart woman, creating your wealthy life by design? A life that is an extraordinary work of art. Angel B. Hartwell, the Wealthy Life Mentor, is hired by women in transition. Women just like you who want to break through to their brilliance, become clear on the value of their wisdom, and embody a beauty-filled, balanced life of shameless self-expression. Discover your wealthy life readiness by taking the quiz at quiz.wealthylifementor.com.
And we are back with Margo Masri. You can find out more about Margo and her business, and you can get a bookkeeping workbook. Boy, I wonder how we turn bookkeeping sexy and hot in a workbook. I'm going to have to go get that for myself. You can find that workbook at margomasri.com. We will have that information for you in the show notes. And let us pick up where we left off, Margo, where you are really positioned at this point in your business in a number of different ways. Number one, you've got many years of experience now as a business owner. Number two, you have received awards, which is fantastic, and that gives you positioning as well. And number three, you have a much greater clarity and strength within yourself and power within yourself to know what to say no to, and even to the extent of firing clients. I love that. I love firing clients. I think that's awesome. So I want to ask you, Margo, how can you, with your genius, help our listeners to get sexy and hot with their numbers? And how do the numbers actually help them in their businesses or in their life to learn how to honor themselves?
The first step to get sexy and hot with your numbers is to decide what's your first financial goal, or what's the one thing that bothers you the most. It's generally that part, what bothers you the most, is what moves you forward to really say to yourself is like, I can do this. And then it becomes contagious. Now, you're kind of like, hey, Margo, there's no way it's going to become contagious. It does when you learn that when one thing turns on, you can do the next. And once you do that, you realize that you can come home with more money by just deciding how your money is going to go. Like I looked at my numbers this morning and I decided that I wanted to do something, and I can tune something a little bit down and a little bit up so that it works in my favor. Mm. And once you have that and that you're in control, everything else flows around that. And to help you, I created that financial workbook so that each part of that, you have all the 9 fundamentals of each area to support you in that journey.
Great. So let's talk about the 9 fundamentals of each area. Let's maybe just, bird's eye view, not detail. Explain what each area is, number 1. And number 2, do you have just keywords for the 9 fundamentals of each area?
Yeah. So you have accounts payable. Mm-hmm. You have accounts receivable. So accounts payable is like the bills that you have to pay. Receivables is our income, is money that we receive. We talk about cash because lots of people still get confused about spending cash versus a credit card. Another area is using plastic, a credit card. Another area is setting calendar reminders. Calendar reminders is just so key because what we schedule our time for, is how we respect and honor ourselves. And and part of that, I know you said to say it broad, but how you schedule your time that you're going to show up. So as if you would show up for a client, you want to show up for yourself. Another one is, what do we say? Accounts payable, accounts receivable. We have keeping personal and business separate, which is huge.
Huge.
Which is,
all right. I want to ask a very interesting question, Margo, because for many people, myself included, I don't know whether this was part of your journey as well, but for many people who step out of a traditional career and into self-employment, we bootstrap, with our own personal credit, with our own personal funds. And, as you mentioned, separating business and personal. I mean, I'm wise enough to know I have my own LLC and I have my bank account over here and I have my other bank account over here. But at the beginning, there's a lot of kind of mixing and matching of the money, so to speak. And so how do you help people to not only keep the personal and the business banking separate, but, when capital is required for cash flow constraints purposes, what do you advise your people, your clients to do to help them to kind of not fall down the rabbit hole of constantly going back into their own personal funds to keep their business flowing?
Perfect question. Love that. So that's kind of how my course was created. I actually have a course that's called Accountable You. And it's really it's exactly what you just shared, is to help you with all of that part, creating the corporation and knowing, all of those things. So what's your my best strategies that I've helped clients with is really keeping intact with those 9 fundamentals and doing ways that are low-hanging fruit before, taking on anything. So it's kind of like taking on, let's say, organic strategies for marketing versus paid, which is a huge, huge thing that I could think of so many people that come to me, because they're running Facebook ads, they're running Instagram and all of these different things. And I'm going to say something that's controversial, but I'm going to put it out there is credit card debt is not bad. A loan isn't bad. A line of credit isn't bad. What's bad is if you don't use it to the potential of what it's there for. Like a line of credit is for a business to use for business growth. And if you keep with these strategies along with the business growth, you're not going to get into a rabbit hole. People get into the rabbit holes when they're not keeping aligned with the strategy and monitoring it. If you go down into that rabbit hole and you don't look at it or you don't hire some type of support, that's when the rabbit hole begins and it just continues to pile on from there.
Great. Well, and I think that there's also a lot of stress that can happen for business owners around cash flow in particular, because business is not, everybody thinks that, just put A plus B together and it will equal C. But from my experience in every business I've been in real estate, I've had my own art gallery and healing arts center. I've been a consultant online for 13 years now. Every single business I've been in, there's always the ebb and flow, the up and down. And for me, it's always been about, okay, if I'm going to be on a roller coaster ride, let's not have it be too steep of a hill that we're going up, because if you go too far up the hill, coming down is going to be really, really scary. So
love this.
In the last couple of minutes that we have, because we literally only have a couple of minutes, I'd love to have you share how you support your clients to be able to, just have the faith in themselves, and also to use their sexy hot numbers to support them.
Okay. So love all of that. And so the stress is generally from unawareness, and it's not understanding. It's those two concepts. It's people just doing because their friend told them on the phone over like Snapple or some type of snack, but they really don't understand what they're doing. If you do it with support, where you're really understanding it and that awareness, and that you see what's happening when you're making those decisions, that's the alignment that happens. And this is particularly why I created the course, is because part of the strategies in there is that I teach is giving you a strategy that when that does happen, of like those body issues, of how to take care of it yourself without thousands and thousands of dollars of therapy. And after being in that situation myself with somatic therapy and all of those things, I've put in there those strategies to teach you, so that when the money situations come up, like I had at a point where like I felt like I was going to vomit and all of those things. So being able to take yourself out of those situations, it's not only just taking care of you out of those situations, it's also saying no when it doesn't work for you, and not doing what doesn't work for you. And that's really what it comes down to. It's saying no, and that's a full sentence, and just leaving it at that.
I love it. No is a full sentence, ladies. And no can often mean saying no to yourself when you get, all excited about the next shiny object.
Making room for new things. Sorry to cut you off, but you say no, and you have space for what you really want to share and to do in the world.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, Margo. Well, we thank you so much for being with us today. We are going to have all of the contact information for Margo in the show notes. Listeners, we do love feedback. Please let us know what you thought of today's show by calling into our listener line. That number will also be in the show notes for you, or send in questions or guest suggestions to listeners at wickedlysmartwomen.com. We might even give you a shout out on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep your ears open, and remember, you are a wonderful woman, and you have hot, sexy numbers. All you need to do is look at them or get support to understand them, and all will be well. Margo, this was fun today.
Thanks for tuning in, downloading, and listening. Be sure to rate and review Wickedly Smart Women on Apple Podcasts and share with other women who can benefit from today's episode. Wickedly Smart Women is the premier podcast series for informing, activating, and inspiring the leader who carries profound wisdom and knows that now is the time to welcome wealth. We welcome your feedback and guest suggestions and invite you to subscribe to our mailing list to be notified of each new episode at wickedlysmartwomen.com.